Good evening, everybody. Let's just start a little earlier, a little off time this week. Just getting Lily in the bath and into bed, and we read a bit tonight. We'll talk about it when I talk about the books that I've read this week. Um, Not a ton to talk about today. Some graphic novels mostly. I talked about a lot of this afternoon. We had our hangout on Damien Sleepy Readers channel this week. Myself, Rasa, and Damien. My tripod's also a little pooched, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. So hopefully that stays. It's really loose for some reason. I tried to tighten it. Hello, Damien. How are you doing? So I'll kind of start with stuff that I didn't talk about this afternoon. So for those of you who are probably going to pop in, then at least when I get to the stuff that you've already seen, or in Damien's case, we're already a part of, you don't have to hear me talk about it again. So we went to 204 Comics this afternoon. As I've spoken about before, that's one of the places I've got a very, very, very small pull list. I think at this point, maybe I just have Firefly and Swamp Thing on that pull list. So while I was there, they've been having a sales for the past couple of weeks. They're trying to make some space. I guess they bought more collections. They're trying to make some space in their bins. They're pretty limited size. It's a smaller shop. So they had some amazing sales. So when the new comics come in on the main shelves about the next month, when the next issue comes in to replace those, they go into this kind of back issue bin area, and they get knocked down. I think it's $1 off of the cover price. All of those comics that are in those bins are now $1 a piece. So you get Marvel and DC and Image, and then some indie stuff. So they had a ton of indie boxes, and I was able to flip through some boxes and kind of grab some books I've been interested in, which is fantastic considering they're still newer comics, like from this year. To get them at $1 a piece is a really, really great deal. They also have a ton of 50-cent and $1 boxes, like long boxes. So I didn't have a ton of time to dig through all of those boxes. Actually didn't get a chance to finish everything we were supposed to do today. I'd meant to kind of do some raking of some leaves before our chat this afternoon. That didn't happen because I was at 204 and didn't realize how many bins they had, and was digging and digging and digging. So from the 50-cent bin, I only got 3 books. This is number 3 from Eternity Comics, and it's Polly and Her Pals. And the tag at the top here, it says the first successful girl strip. Somebody named Martin Sheridan is making that claim. So Eternity Comics, we've talked about quite a bit on here. They've done some reprints of some horror stuff. So this is a collection of comic strips, all presented kind of landscape mode. I haven't looked through this. Hello, Gorvidal. Hello, Colin. I haven't looked through this in any detail yet. Cliff Sterrett is the creator's name. Do they have a... Cliff Sterrett was 29 years old in 1912 when Polly and Her Pals began appearing in the newspaper. Little did he expect that the strip would last 46 years. So there you go. There's the information right from the inside front cover. 46 years for this strip, starting in 1912. It looks pretty good. 50 cents. I'm not a huge strip guy. I'm not a huge comic strip collector, but for 50 cents, you can't go wrong to check this out. So again, it's like some of these smaller companies, a little bit surprising in the territory that they were kind of digging into. So a nice surprise there. Yes, you know it, Colin. Yeah. And then something else from Special Studio. We had spoken before. I got one called The Snake. I think Colin ended up picking it up as well too. This is Black Scorpion, looking sort of similar to the Snake. So issue number 1 and issue number 2, looking very much like the Green Hornet there. The interiors, we'll look at them in a sec. I really like this cover. The interiors look just okay. They don't blow me away too much, but I've never seen anything from this special studio before. So for 50 cents a pop, why the hell not pick that up and give it a try. So we'll see. I don't have high hopes for this one, but yeah, those are the 50 centers. And then for the dollar books, and Damien, maybe you know some of these. Some of the stuff that I picked up, I didn't look through the insides. They were all bagged and boarded. And I just figured for $1, I'd give it a try. This is from Source Point Press, and it's something called 5 Bullets, 6 Men. A really nice kind of small square bound, very glossy cover. The cover jumped out at me. This was the only one. I don't know if this was a one shot or if this was a series. I'd never heard of it. I'd never seen it, but it kind of jumped out of the box at me, that cover. The insides are black and white, and they don't they don't amaze me, the interiors, but I figured we'd give it a shot anyway. I kind of wish, it's one of those where I kind of wish they didn't have them bagged and boarded, just so I could have flipped through. Haven't seen the 5 Bullets before, only recently became aware of Source Point. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see. Maybe the story is decent, but either way, that's a pretty striking cover. Kind of like that one. In the world of variant covers, for a stone cold dollar, issue number 3 of Animal Castle, this kind of sketch cover or whatever it is, not colored. Why the hell not? I mean, you know how much I love this series, so for $1 getting some of these variant covers, I figured I'd jump on that. And then issue number 4, another variant cover for that one. I've got the whole series in singles already, but $1 a piece. I'm rich, bitch. One that I've wanted to check out for a while. Gore Vidal had spoken about it. I got one of the early, I think it was Eternity Comics as well, that did issues of this. Ablaze, even though I'm not a big fan of them these days, I did always want to check out this Captain Harlock, but I didn't want to check it out for $3.99 for like $5 Canadian. So they had issue number 2, issue number 4, and issue number 6. No other issues, unfortunately, but these look fantastic. They've always kind of interested me, but I just haven't ever bit the bullet on them. I really want to get more of that original run, that Eternity put out, but those, I never come across those, even when I do see stacks of Eternity books. But this looks great. It looks beautiful inside. So I'm very curious about this. I'll kind of dig into those issues, even though I don't have 3 in a row. It's worth it. One that I did find, the first 3 issues, they were individually polybagged as well, too. From Black Caravan, another one I hadn't heard of. Cherry Blackbird. The covers were amazing and really stood out to me. Track 1, Drug, Satan, Death, Witch. So you've got me there. Fucking comics, man. There you go. Lay down then. So this is issue 1, 2, and 3 of this Cherry Blackbird series. And like I said, all of the covers are great. Black Caravan, I see them. All of their stuff kind of has this feel, you know, this kind of metal or punk rock or whatever the heck you want to call. And there's number 3. Really, really cool covers. And the interiors don't look half bad either. Heavy, thick cardstock. There you go. There's some of the interiors there. There's my screen grab. Writing and art, Joseph Schmalke. And this is, second print for 2021. I thought this was from this year, so this is last year's. Yeah, doesn't look too bad though. I'm down for this. It's masturbation, Damien. So that's 3 issues there. And another one that I hadn't seen, that wasn't in my pull box. This was in the back issue bin for $1. Firefly, the 20th anniversary. I think it was just a one-shot. It says number 1, but I think it was just a one-shot. Well, August 2022, so I might be wrong about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to show you any Firefly. You know about Firefly. You know I'm a fan. And that brings us to the 2 new issues. These weren't in the dollar bin, but this is 7 and 8 of all new Firefly. I'm looking forward to these 2. I'm going to be reading. Don't choke on it, Damien. These 2 I'm going to be reading tonight. So another in the world of variant covers. Many Deaths of Layla Starr. One of my favorite reads. A glossy, shiny cover for $1. Why the hell not? I love this series. I think this is such a strong book from Ram V, and it's shiny. And one that I'm so goddamn excited about. I never thought I would see this here in town. It has a pretty stiff price tag, so to get it for $1, it's fucking Lance Stanton. I was very, very curious to check this out once I saw. So this is the Power Comics guys teaming up with Floating Worlds. If you don't know the Power Comics channel, I've talked about it before. This is so great. They did such a nice job on this. Floating World did an amazing job. I wanted it, but not for the price. I wasn't that curious to pay like $8 plus shipping. So it was the only copy that he had in the box. I don't remember seeing it on any of the shelves here in town. So super thrilled to get my hands on this one from the Power Comics guys. They've done another one as well. Yeah, I was discounted. Well, I mean, like I was saying at the beginning, maybe before you came in, Colin, this shop is pretty small. And I think they just bought themselves a new collection and they're trying to make space. They just don't have the space in the shop. So they often do sales. They regularly discount stuff. So nobody else in town is buying this except for me. They probably got this copy in for me, but I didn't come in that week. I don't make it to 204 that often. It's a bit of a hike for me, so I don't often make it there down to them. So $1 fucking dollar. I'll take that all day. I'm very, very excited about that. Finally, for some reason, I missed issue number 4 of Norse Mythology, but here it is in the dollar bin. So this is from volume 3. So really, really glad to find this because I wasn't finding this anywhere in town. I thought it was going to be another one that I had to order. Issue number 1, the Mignola cover from Shaolin Cowboy. Cover that I didn't have for $1. Why not? Cover that I didn't have for $1 from the amazing Jim Henson Storyteller. This is the Shapeshifter series. That cover is pretty great too. So, and then finally for the new books, or for the disc. Oh no, not finally. Almost finally for the discounted books. 2 more titles to go. Tales from Harrow County, issues number 1, 2, and 3. I'm very excited to dig into these. I need to get my hands on the second collection, the trade. I've long since finished the first trade and really, really loved it. Hello, Chaos and Comics, and really loved it. So I really want to get into reading some more of it. His art is just exceptional stuff, man. It's really beautiful stuff. I thought there was a nice 2-page spread in that first issue that jumped out at me when I was flipping through the first time. I guess not. I'm not seeming to find it, of course, because we're on video. Anyway, you know his art. So there you go. And last, but definitely not least, from the stuff that I picked up for $1, I found issue number 1, and then it seemed to just disappear. This is Until My Knuckles Bleed, issue number 3. So I've still got to find a couple of issues here, but I really, really dug this first issue quite a bit. This is from Behemoth. I thought it was a really fun first issue. mix of Frank Miller and some Kirby-ish type of stuff. Really, really good. So I'm going to try my best not to read this one until I somehow find issue number 2. I may have to put a call out there to the Comic Addicts groups on Facebook to see if anybody's got. I'm not sure, Damien, I think you were reading this. Did this go 4 issues or was it only 3? Try to find the rest of the issues that I don't have. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, it's worth it, Chris. It's really, I mean, at least that first issue. I can't speak for the whole thing, but for that first issue. So those are the dollar books. Lillian got a stack of dollar books. One of the ones we found, and I wish I would have held off on buying issue number 3 because they had issue number 2 and 3 of Flavor Girls for $1 each. Those ones new are $7.99 US. So I gotta say, I'm kind of really disappointed. We read issue number 2 and 3 tonight. I don't have them with me. They're still upstairs. Just really sloppy storytelling. There was a character that got introduced in issue number 2 that we just had no memory of whatsoever. So we had to go back to issue number 1 and flip through to see if we could find who this character was. And there was no record of this person. So it makes us feel like, was there something missing between issue 1 and issue 2, like a 1.5 or something? Really kind of disappointing because it's so goddamn expensive. One of the things I am curious about, though, is the backup story in issue number 2 and 3. There's this Japanese movie that we've talked about on the channel before, Hausu. They do, believe it or not, they do a kind of takeoff on that movie in 2 kind of short stories in the back of these 2 issues. So I'm very, very curious to see what the hell they do with that. We didn't read that one tonight. We kind of just stuck with the main story. But overall, that's a thumbs down from both me and Lillian for that one. So on to the stuff that I read this week. I feel like I'm rushing a bit, but we'll slow down when I get to some of the books. Hello, Scott Connor, Caliber Comics. This is Frost, issue number 1. So this had a series at another company before Caliber put this out. It was also, I think there was there a Frost story in that Roulette Caliber anthology that we looked at before too? I was expecting a lot more from this. It wasn't bad, but it felt, again, it was another book that felt really rushed. Drug dealers and kind of crime, and this guy's like an investigator. So he's kind of on a stakeout, and this woman comes down to the parkade to look for her son, who sometimes plays down there, and she just got there at the wrong time, so she ends up being taken hostage by these bad guys, and it sets off our man Frost, and of course, wouldn't you know it, she ends up being found killed, and her naked body laying under a tree, naturally posed under a tree. So it kind of goes from there. It was okay. I mean, it wasn't great. It's always the gamble with this stuff. You always kind of hope, especially with these crime comics, they'd have a little something extra going for them. But it really felt like it was rushed. It really felt kind of haphazard and things just kind of thrown together. Yeah, it looks natural. Yes. So it didn't feel like it was fully fleshed out that much. I don't remember how many issues this lasted for Caliber. And then on the back, we get an ad for Fringe by Paul Tobin and Phil Hester. So not the best, not a strong showing from Caliber, but I'm glad I picked it up. And again, in the literature, crime comics, high literature, I think is what we decided, didn't we, Chris? Deserves an Eisner, at the very least, deserves an Eisner Award. Oh, you did? Hey, you bought a trade of Frost. Okay. I wonder if that collects the earlier stuff there, Colin. Rated X, the special it says number one, but I think there was only one of them. I think Colin showed this off recently, the regular series from Rated X. Give it to Ignatz. Yes, absolutely. An interesting style, again, in the let's just rip off Mobius kind of style of artwork and make a pseudo sort of porn comic. I also find it weird that it's called Rated X. It's hardly Rated X, this book. And honestly, there was really nothing here to enjoy. The art was even just okay because it was so obvious, ripping off kind of Mobius and stuff. It didn't really seem to have any sort of voice of its own. Didn't impress me too much. So this is hot and uncensored, illustrated eroticism from Brazil. And this is the creators. Our name story is Helga. Art is Barroso. So yeah, not much really to say about this one. I'm not saying I was expecting a lot out of this. It's aircell porn at the end of the day, but it just wasn't as an arrow, just in case you don't know. I mean, again, it's one of those things you never know what you're going to find in some of these. You may find something a little saucy, but you may find something that's a little interesting. And it just wasn't the case with this one. It was very, even for kind of a porn comic, it was, it sounds so fucking ridiculous to say. It was even a low bar, even for that. Misrepresented porn is the worst. I think you have a case. Thank you very much. I'll contact your lawyers. We're going after Aircell. And then the final one in the not a fantastic read, not really surprised. There was only one highlight in this. This is Rock and Roll Madness. There was two issues of this. One of the highlights right off the bat is the Greg Irons cover. It's a fantastic fucking image. I kind of stole this one from online and put in some dead air stuff in him talking and things for a promo for my radio show one week. But a fantastic cover. And the stories just really are dull as absolute shit. But the other thing that's kind of nice is this Vince Eugene Men of Destiny present. And it is words McFerrin, pictures Dave Gibbons. So a short story with some Dave Gibbons. So this is a UK company, Cosmic Comics, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, Cosmic Comics from 1973, no less. So from Dave Gibbons, 1973. So there's a good look at that. So that was probably the highlight of the book. But again, even the story here just wasn't interesting. A sort of Elvis type of character here, but taken to an extreme. I think, does he become president or something at one point in the end? It almost looks like Marilyn Manson. Yeah, Marilyn Manson crossed with Mick Jagger, I think, there, Gore Vidal. Marilyn Manson is still alive, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah, so that's cool. That's the coolest part about the book, but and the cover, obviously. But other than that, I wouldn't worry about finding it. So on to the stuff that I enjoyed. And since Colin's here, we'll give Colin the shout out again, like I did this afternoon. I got to give Colin a huge shout out for this Glorp Comics. This is one that he showed in one of his haul videos recently, like Hey Man Comics. And as soon as he showed the cover, I was sold. And then I was sold even more so once he showed the interiors. These interiors, these comics are so much goddamn fun. Yeah, he's legal problems. That's correct. And he also puts on, and my son and I went to see him. I took my son to see him and Marilyn Manson because my son was a huge Marilyn Manson fan for a little while there. I don't think as much anymore. And both of them, Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie, put on the most dull fucking shows I think I've ever seen in my life. Manson seemed like he was fucked out of his head too. So it was extra dull. And Rob Zombie I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. Rob Zombie had a Winnipeg Jets jersey on that said zombie on it. And at one point on his stage show, he comes off the stage to kind of walk around the floor. My son and I were just up off the floor, the ice, basically, because it happened at where the Jets play hockey at the MTS Center downtown. And he comes off the stage to kind of, as a song is playing and like, yeah, Winnipeg, all of this kind of stuff, and walk through the crowd and give some high fives and things as he kind of rounds the bend from where we are. This huge, huge fucking Indigenous dude. All I see is you just see this dude running down the stairs. He comes bolting down the stairs and onto the ice and just swings at Rob Zombie and just misses his head as the guards that are with him kind of whisk him away to take him back onto stage. Thankfully, they didn't do anything to the guy. Nobody jumped on him and fucked him up, but it was pretty brilliant. I wish he would have landed that punch. It would have been amazing. Anyway, so back to these comics. It was what we were all feeling. We were all feeling the same thing. I think everybody in the crowd was cheering him on as he was running down. You could feel the only time in the night where the excitement level rose in the arena was watching this guy wanting to punch out Rob Zombie. His movies suck too, by the way. So these books are such an absolute blast. They're a real throwback to underground comics. My favorite character right here is Stony Baloney. There's two stories, one story in this one and one story with Stony Baloney in another one. And the premise is just him going in these ridiculous situations and just getting high, and smoking weed in all these different ways. In this one, the cows apparently graze on fields filled with marijuana. So of course you want to get a hit of that good stuff. You you light up and there you go. Forget hollowing out an apple. Smoke straight from the cow's ass. And of course, where the fun really kicks in with these Stony Baloney stories is obviously he gets really fucking high. So then they get to play with some crazy kind of psychedelic type imagery. And I have to say, for all of the comics where there's been psychedelic imagery, I got to say they do it really well in this book. There's some very, very unique stuff going on here. And then we get this 2-page spread that's just an absolute pleasure. This needs to be a blacklight poster, because that is fucking amazing. So I am absolutely in love with this Glorp Gum Company. You need to check them out. Damien put the link in our chat when I was talking about it too. But these are such fun. On the back, there's also hello, Jonathan. Yes, Jonathan Runyon. Blacklight posters indeed is what that needs to be. So they're basically, one of their things, 100% right, Scott. Yeah, it's a real nice mix of all of the kind of classics from underground comics and otherwise. If you go on their site, one of their kind of gimmicks that they have is buy a piece of gum, get a free t-shirt. So you can buy a piece of gum for $28 and you can get a t-shirt. And they've got a bazillion t-shirt designs on their website. And they're all this kind of classic, what you would see in old comic books, and almost like Big Daddy Roth type of stuff too, or Robert Williams, who was basically one of the guys that did a lot of that imagery. So the other thing for the comics is they have a 3-pack. So I got these. You could buy them individually. I think they were $6 a piece, or you could buy a 3-pack for, I think maybe it was $12. I don't remember. You'd have to look on the website, but there was a bit of a discount if you bought all 3. So Twin Cities Freakout was the other one that came from it. And the bonus in this one is the inside front cover has his take on a classic Robert Crumb piece. And I keep forgetting his name. And it is McGinty. Brad McGinty is his name. And the thing with this, they even kind of credit this as 1971, even though this is come out this year or last year. Our man Stony Baloney again with another great story. Getting a job. This guy working in a grocery store, basically forcing him to work there. And there's our there's some Basil Wolverton for you there, Scott. And again, it's just him figuring out ways to get high at work. And at one point, he ends up smoking joints through his eyes, which kind of leads him to kind of lose his mind. All of a sudden, we're getting some kind of collage action here with some photos being in and these eyeballs that are now popping out of his head as he walks through and steps on a bunch of them. Arena shows in general are awful. I went to a show last night in a brewery's warehouse and it was insane. Oh, wow. What did you see? For Girelli. Hello, by the way. Graphic Man. Hey, you think he would dig this one? Or are you? He probably would. Hey. So there you go. But these are so much fun. And this one, the coloring is amazing in this. All's Well That Ends Well, by one of the best kind of pen names I think I've ever seen in my life. S. Wipes. So Mr. Swipes. Really great kind of takeoff on classic kind of horror. The stories are all just ridiculous and absurd and fun. There's nothing, they're not diving in and trying to present you with something extra. They're just having an absolute blast in this modern kind of underground way. What does that say? Trippin' with Quick. So again, kind of their take on Crumb's Stoned Again. Some bonkers artwork. I would say that even if you just picked up one issue, Twin Cities Freak Out, I think this is a really solid one to pick up if you only wanted to grab one. But honestly, just get the 3-pack. And there you go. That last image, like that's fucking beautiful stuff. It's beautiful. So, and then the third one I got was Romantic 3D Sci-Fi Nightmare Goes to War. Incredible title. It's not 3D. There is a couple of spots. I think there was a couple of ads where they sort of did a pseudo 3D thing. So this first one, yeah, this Glorpoids, could have been a series of trading cards. That's kind of how the storytelling goes. You get a panel and then you get a little bit of text. It's not real 3D. They've just kind of blurred the images and kind of shifted things around to give it that kind of look. So I will break out a pair of my 3D glasses at some point to kind of have a close look at this stuff. But if anything, it'll just be kind of trippy. The colors will shift and stuff. So super fun. Seems like a really super crew of people doing all sorts of great stuff. I ordered 2 sheets of Halloween stickers from them as well. One of them made its way to my water bottle there. So very kind of similar to the Goblinko kind of guys that did Dungeon Degenerates and stuff. Hardcore Punk Show. Drain, Coil, Life's Question, Risk. I was 2 to 3 times as old as most of the crowd, but the kids are still all right. That's hilarious that you say that, because I still go to bar shows every once in a while. And I'm the old man. Like when I was their age going to see shows, there's always a couple of old guys hanging out against the wall drinking a beer, and it would always be a little weird. I am now that weird old guy at these metal and grindcore and stoner rock shows or whatever noise shows and things that are coming through town. I'm that old weirdo against the wall. Luckily, I still know a couple of other old weirdos who sometimes go to these shows as well. So I'm not alone for the most part, but I feel you there, Forgerelli. I feel you. 2 more for love, and every single issue has multiple stories. There's a few different artists in these books. Do they give credits at the end of this one? There was one of the issues where they break down who did what. And then someone here doing their best Ed Piskor impression. That looks so much like Ed Piskor. It's ridiculous, that kind of panel there. They don't do a breakdown in this one. In one of the issues, they do a breakdown of who's who. And then again, on the back, you get some t-shirts and a comic strip, but everything made to look like they're coming from these old comics. So good. And it feels like it's going to be a site that I'm going to check back on fairly often. The last 3-pack of comics that they had have long since sold out. I don't feel like they're a company that's going to reprint this kind of stuff. So it's definitely going to be on my rotation of companies to check out. So I got the stickers from them as well. They sent a couple of free stickers that are here up on my cabinet. And then I got a couple of packs of their Wax Packs trading cards. They're called Crazy Cards. You get, what is it? Five cards and 1 sticker. There isn't any gum that comes with them though. But they do this really well too. Here's a couple of the stickers. This real kind of classic look to all of it. And then on the back of those stickers, you also get a mini comic strip as well. And then the cards themselves here. So the top 3 are kind of Valentine's Day cards. You get their knockoff of Garbage Pail Kids. And then you get some Mars Attacks kind of homage kind of cards, which I think the Mars Attacks ones were a series. I think all of these at some point had their own full series. And this current series that they have going are kind of the best of. And then there's the backs. Not that weird for me. Lots of old heads in the scene. Depends on the bands. Kids go crazy and make my photos better. Yeah, no, absolutely. I hear you. Really fun. A hell of a company, man. It's great that there's people out there still producing kind of comics like this that are clearly just absolutely loving what they're doing and have a really great kind of design aesthetic or whatever. It's beautiful stuff. So now onto the final 3 books that we'll talk about. Again, these are ones that I did talk about in the chat this afternoon. So if you have seen that, there's going to be a lot of repetition for the rest of the stream here tonight. We'll start off with this one because I think Gore might have, if he's still here, he might have missed it from the chat this morning or this afternoon rather. This is The Stranger, put out by Pegasus Books. Jacques Fernandez, based on the novel by Albert Camus, I think is what Damien said. Forgive me for my horrible mispronunciation. Chris Chaos and Comics had said that this is one of his favorite writers. So this is what was the story called? There was a short story. Was it also called The Stranger, Gore, if you're still here? The Guest, by his short story called The Guest, as a graphic novel before undertaking this new interpretation of The Stranger. His books have been the subject of many exhibitions in France and Algeria. This is the write-up for Jacques Fernandez. This was a bit of a bleak read for the end of my night last night. When I did a little bit of research on him, again, very little, he was kind of regarded as this kind of, or he thought of himself as an absurdist kind of writer, but people kind of labeled him as an existentialist, which apparently he wasn't a big fan of that tag. Oh, he did hate a romantic writer for a generation. He had a huge influence on many writers, including the late Christopher Hitchens. Really, hey? He died in a car accident, if I remember correctly. Christopher Hitchens, that's quite a guy to influence. Hell of a guy. Hitchens was a hell of a guy, even though he talked some absolute bullshit sometimes. But this was quite a story. I didn't really know what I was in for when I started reading it. And then as I got to the end, it started really taking this dark turn. And I mean, all of us, I think, have various things. When I read a story, I'll stick to myself. When I read these books, you always have a tendency to kind of put yourself in place of one of the characters. This main character was saying some things that I feel and talking about some things that I personally struggle with. This kind of thoughts about what happens to us after we die. So it was really for like 11, 12 at night, whatever time it was a little heavy for me, but I was so invested in the book. I had to finish it to see when it was done, but it definitely kind of put me off for the rest of the night. I think I ended up going to bed pretty soon afterwards. I wanted to highlight this page. They refer back to it later on in the book when he's kind of on trial. Our main character is on trial. I loved this page. This really stood out to me as I was reading the story. These faces, and especially this one old guy just staring him down, is really unnerving in an amazing kind of way. So he's here at his mother. His mother has died. He put her in this old folks home because he couldn't afford to take care of her anymore. When he goes for this funeral, he doesn't shed a tear. Our main character is really kind of cut off from everybody else. He just seems to kind of exist. He doesn't seem to want to participate as much. He's really willing to just kind of go along with whatever's going on. So that scene specifically comes back to haunt him in the trial that goes on, as people refer back to him. He didn't even cry at his mother's funeral, and that becomes a thing where everybody is kind of shocked, and it's just complete nonsense to some degree, some of the things. So there's this underlying idea with the character that he just doesn't want to play along. He doesn't want to participate in some of the social kind of norms that happen. It's one of the things that he talks about in that final kind of chapter. And I'm sure there's a million other things going on that are completely over my head. Everything that I've said, as kind of bleak as it left me feeling at the end, I do really want to read the original short story, because I feel like there's probably a lot more going on in this story than they put in this graphic novel. So I'm very, very curious about it. So I will be kind of looking it up. We're planning to go back to the library next weekend, kind of make that part of, now that winter is starting to set in. We had snow last week. Try to get into a rhythm of visiting the library, at least to get us out of the house. So I liked it, but you really have to be in a good headspace if you're anything like me, because it does get a little harrowing, especially when he gets visited by a priest, and we finally get him at the end kind of opening up about things. I don't want to spoil it for anybody else who doesn't know the story or anything, but when it kind of reaches its climax, he kind of gets the one time he kind of opens up about his feelings and the way he sees the world and the way he sees existence. It's pretty heavy shit, man. So an enjoyable read. It really kind of did a good job too of the dialogue at the beginning was very kind of stilted. There was a very kind of like, I don't know if sharpness is the right word, but it didn't flow naturally. And at first I started thinking the usual, that I wonder if that's just a part of the translation into English. But I do feel like it was done purposefully, because as you kind of get to know this character and the dialogue starts to evolve by the end, it's good, man. It was impressive. Let's go back to see what Gore is saying here. He had feuds with Jean-Paul Sartre when the latter continued to support communism. I didn't know about this graphic novel. Camus was first-rate essayist as well. It's good to read Camus with Orwell, with whom he has much in common when it comes to speaking truth to power. Both influenced Hitchens. Amazing. If you like bleak, Josh Simmons has done some deeply bleak comics. Okay. Josh Simmons of Batman, Dream of the Bat fame, the book that I got recently. I know his name very well. I don't know much of his works. What would you suggest there for Jarelli? Throw out some titles for us. Now, sort of in the same universe, but with a much kind of more uplifting view on things, is Portugal by Pedrosa. Cyril Pedrosa. This is the same artist who worked on The Golden Age, the 2 volumes that I read and talked about on the channel a little while ago. Rasa had picked them up from her library as well too. This was Gorgeous, gorgeous story. I loved this one a lot. Um, I mean, I always start talking like this and then I hesitate to speak too highly. But for Damien and for Chris, Chaos and Comics, this is mandatory reading. It's mandatory. You have to read this to be able to subscribe to this channel. Same guy. House was very dark. Black River was pretty good too. Okay, cool. I'll keep my eyes out for those ones. This was a similar kind of character, as in as much as he seems to not want to participate in the goings on around him and is really willing to just kind of float through life and sort of not engage, even though he's a comics artist in this story, and he's kind of going through a moment of really having nothing to say. So he doesn't want to do any comics because he doesn't have a single thing to say. And he's in this relationship that he's not really invested in. And that starts to show itself in many different ways. Let me just see here. So here we go. He goes swimming with his partner, and one of the things that he likes to do is just sink underwater and just kind of freeze underwater. She freaks out and grabs him to bring him to the surface because she thought he was drowning, scared the shit out of her. And his kind of response is, nah, I just do that kind of thing. So you really get a sense of who he is. I wanted to highlight these 4 panels as well too. I think these are some of the most beautiful panels I've seen in a book in a long time. I love the movement of the figure there coming towards us. I love the angle of the hands and the arms. I think it's really, really incredible art, and kind of just kind of capturing someone swimming through the water. And there's a ton of stuff like that. So it's all watercolors, and he changes his color palette throughout the story as we kind of move through. It's very kind of monotone near the beginning, and he introduces more and more colors as the story kind of unfolds. So his cousin that he hasn't seen in, I think, 25 years is getting married, and she sends out an invitation to him to come to the wedding. And at first he's not going to. Things kind of start deteriorating even more for him in his personal life. So he changes his mind and kind of decides to go, and he goes with his father, and you get the sense of their relationship. Not that they have a bad relationship, but they don't often communicate. And he gets an opportunity to kind of explore his family's past and his family's history, and kind of engage with people in his family, and kind of just get a sense of maybe why he feels that he is the way he is. And it just kind of goes from there as he starts engaging more with people. He ends up moving back to Portugal to kind of do some work. He gets this job doing some design work, and ends up going to Portugal, to where one of his cousins lives as well. And again, just keeps engaging with his kind of surroundings more so than he was at the beginning. It's so well told. It's so beautifully illustrated. The characters all feel like real people. We're not dealing with, I don't know, man, there's just something, as much as I like some darker stuff at times, and especially in my youth, I find as I get older, this is the kind of stuff that resonates with me, where I maybe would have scoffed at this kind of thing when I was younger. I probably wouldn't have given it any sort of notice whatsoever, but I really, really like this a lot. This was a really strong, it's one that I want to find for myself and add to the collection because of how much I love the Golden Age. And the story in Golden Age I really enjoyed, but the art, let's be honest, was really the draw. This one has the bonus of both worlds. The writing is really fucking good, and the art is just gorgeous. So one thing I did say this afternoon, like you can see it in some of the female faces especially. He worked on some Disney movies, and there's this kind of classic Disney style for things like Sleeping Beauty, 1001 Dalmatians, especially in the faces of women. A woman like this is a great example, where you see some of the kind of preliminary sketches and designs for some of those older Disney animated, and he's got that style inherently within his style. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of that has come from him just as an artist, but I'm sure working at Disney sort of accelerated that. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly why I kind of put them together, because they really balanced each other out. Although I wish I would have read this one last night and maybe The Stranger during the day yesterday. But he has that really kind of classic Disney type of style. And as much as I'm not a fan of those early Disney movies, the messaging and things like that, the style and the design and the art in that old stuff is phenomenal. Aristocats stands out to me, especially when you see a lot of those kind of preliminary drawings and design ideas for those movies. Gorgeous stuff. So strong, probably the recommendation of the week is this one. This one's kind of stood head and shoulders above everything else, even though these last 3 books, or last 4 books, I guess, were things that I really enjoyed all of them. I would say that Portugal really stands out. And I want to get my hands on Equinox is the other one. So tonight I'll probably search on the Equinoxes. Sorry. I'll probably do a search online for the libraries here in Winnipeg and see if it exists somewhere at one of the libraries, and maybe put it on hold because I want to check that one out. And I'll be hunting for this one, a used copy of this to get to add to my shelves. Another one from Floating World Comics was The Afterland by a guy named Chris Taylor was his name. So this came out in 2016. It's listed as Afterland Volume 1. There was supposed to be a Volume 2. When I added this to my 500 comic reading goal on Twitter, I kind of sent a message to Floating World as well, kind of added them, asking if this was something that was ever going to come out, the second volume. They actually responded, or whoever runs their Twitter responded saying, no plans yet, but let's hope. Because this is a phenomenal book in different ways. The story is good enough. It's not a bad story by any means, but it's more a matter of a story just kind of existing to move along the images. But the imagery and the design of this is what's really impressive to me. This is kind of equal parts. There's this designer, Robert Beatty. He does music as well too. Three-Legged Race is kind of his experimental music project. And he's done design for a lot of different bands, including the most recent Tim Heidecker album. He designed the album cover for that, if you know Tim Heidecker, his music. So this kind of has equal parts Beatty with Fantastic Planet. And then this afternoon, a bunch of people were throwing out names. One of the ones that stood out for me was Matodi. I can absolutely see some of that in there as well. I loved this book for this kind of reason. These big kind of single panel pages that just absolutely jump off the page, and everything has this incredible kind of texture to it. It almost feels like I'm assuming that it's all digital, but you get some of these effects with the yellow. Sorry, my wife must be home. I think I hear her voice. You get some of this effect with the background yellow, where it almost has this kind of spray painted spatter kind of effect to it, this kind of softness. An amazing visual treat, this book. Floating World also did another single issue comic that was a collection from his sketchbook, which is dramatically different than the work here. If you check him out, if you do a search for Chris Taylor on the internet, you should find his website. He does a lot of design for all sorts of things, for advertisements. He's done commercial work. He does music as well too. And the little bit that I've listened to that's on Bandcamp sounds pretty amazing. He did 2 short YouTube videos as promotions for this book, which I would strongly suggest you check out. to again get that kind of Fantastic Planet vibe out of it. I'm showing this one because this is one of my favorite panels from the entire book. Just the kind, everything about it, the framing of it, the characters that are kind of half in shadow, half in light, this kind of space back there casting this light, his kind of laser beam coming towards us, this almost specter looking character melting in the foreground, like really, really incredible. This was such a treat to sit. I read this one very slowly that afternoon. This was the first thing that I read when we got home from the library. Amazing. Got to give a shout out to my library as well too for taking the chance to get something like this in. I can only imagine this is something that maybe someone requested, maybe someone donated it to the library. I'm not exactly sure who kind of curates their graphic novel section in our big library downtown, but strong work to whoever did. I think they had 2 copies of this in as well, so that was really fantastic to see, and a really, really great discovery. When we talk about thank God for Fantagraphics, I also got to throw Floating World in that too. They've had their hands in kind of helping release a bunch of really amazing stuff over the years. So, and again, it's another place, like, I feel like I don't know nearly everything that they've put out over the years. So that is Afterland by Chris Taylor. And that's the last book for tonight. So yes, that is it. Thank you very much. That was way longer than I thought it was going to be. Thanks very much for everybody hanging out. Who did we have here today? Sleepy Reader, Gore Vidal, Loading the Cannon. That guy was here. Chaos and Comics, of course. Thank you for hanging out. Scott Connor, Forgerelli. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging out. Jonathan Runyon, thank you for coming. And we will see you next week. Yeah, have a good week, everybody. We'll talk to you.